Well, I have always loved light. In fact, when we designed this church, what was important to me was I came from a Christianity. I rose up in a Christianity of our sanctuaries were all black boxes. That's the kind of, black boxes and fog machine worship, and that's the kind of thing. And then when I finally was able to move from that and be in this, it was very important to me that ambient light would be in here. And we don't have any secret fog machine back there, but I love light. And when I go all the way back to my undergraduate days when I was studying film at the USC Film School, one of the things I learned about great directors of photography, great cinematographers, these are people that are beyond technicians. They are truly artists, and they learn to paint with light. They also, the great ones, the ones that really, there's lots of great ones, but the great ones know how to capture just light, no lighting. No rigging, they can just capture the light. So one of the greats is Roger Deakins, and so I want to show you, this is from Blade Runner. This is from Kandun. Anybody recognize this? Fargo? Yeah, just, and he shot No Country for Old Men, he shot Shawshank, literally one of the greats. An old man now. But what I love about light is natural light. And so I've started to think over the last decade that this is actually true for the spiritual life as well. I was kind of brought up in the kind of spirituality that when Jesus said, "You are the light of the world," I literally took that seriously. I fully committed to that. And then what my spiritual life and Christian spirituality was about was I need to burn bright. I need to shine bright. My purity needs to shine bright. My doctrine and dogma needs to shine bright. My teaching needs to shine bright. If I'm on this earth, and it needs to shine so much out of me, it blinds you with how bright I am. And it worked for a while. But then eventually it didn't. It actually became more pressure to shine bright and to make sure my light is shining bright. And to teach all of you to have that same kind of spirituality. And then I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't try to embody an incandescent light of my faith. And I've come to hold that, just like the great cinematographers, that the real miracle is in the natural light. The real miracle is in the ambient light, the natural thing in us and in our humanness. The Gospel of John, there's 4 Gospels, and the other 3 start with Christmas, the manger, the whole deal, but John starts radically different. No mangers, no Christmas. It starts very poetic. And it starts talking about light, and I want to show this to you, I hope. Okay. There it is. Austin, should I just let you drive those? Okay, we're good. This is how the Gospel of John starts. In the beginning was the Word. And by the way, that doesn't mean this. A lot of people told you it meant this. It doesn't mean this. It's the Greek word logos, spoken. The Word was with God, and the Word was God, and He was with God in the beginning. And by the way, this is how Christian spirituality views it. It's not how my Jewish friends view it. All things were made by Him, and nothing was made without Him. I didn't give you that verse. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and His life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. So this, I think, is not a theological vision. I think the writer of John is saying this is how reality works, at least from our Christian spirituality. And that light pulses and is everywhere, and that God's light and divine light is literally everywhere. And so what John says here is that light shines in the darkness. And that isn't just wishful thinking. There is something sacred about that our light and that natural light is very sacred. And there is something hidden in there. In the last sentence, when it says, darkness has not overcome it, that Greek word there is not overcome, meaning defeat it. Like it defeats it and goes, come on, let's go, darkness, I win. It's not that. That word there, it's more expansive than that. And I want to read what I have here. The word basically is that the darkness cannot comprehend the light. It's like it doesn't even understand it when that light comes. And so I know some of you have been thinking, you relate to my story. You go, yeah, I had to shine bright, and that started to feel like pressure too. And some of you, maybe for a while, or even here now, you bagged the whole thing, which if that's the case, you're still safe here. That's okay. You're trying to figure it out. But some of you might be feeling like, well, you know, about God, Jesus, church, spirituality, the Bible, I don't even have much of a light right now. And so one of your perspectives might be, and part of it is maybe your old thinking, part of it is you project a story maybe about church or somebody like me or the people around you who are disappointed with what you're going through. You go, I guess my light must be dimming. I guess my light must be going out. And I'm saying that's not the case at all. Maybe it's not failure on your part. Maybe it's actually clarity. You're starting to get some clarity about the whole thing. Let me show you what it says in 2 Corinthians. God said, let light shine out of darkness. God made His light shine in our hearts. His light gives us the light to know the glory of God. And where I'm at in this whole thing is, I don't think Paul knew of what's happening here. Paul was a human being. Paul is describing his reality right then, right now. That's how he sees it. And he basically says this light, where does it shine from? It shines from within us. It is within us, this sacred light, this natural light, not this beaming, shining light. Just who you are. And that is sacred. And in my spiritual life, at times it's slow, at times it's uncertain. It still can be. But I don't view it anymore that my light is dimming or something is going out. It's part of the sacred experience. And if you listen to me often, I somehow get this in a zillion times. If there's anything I'm trying to grab hold of in my Christian spirituality, and yes, as the minister of this church, I share all the time, I want a Christian spirituality that is about reality. That is about reality, and not about a magic God, a magic faith, illusion, but grasps reality. So now I'm going to share some things. I'm a little nervous to share with you about them, not because I don't hold them, because I know some of this might be new for you, especially in your Christian spirituality. But as I said, I trust you. You're a smart bunch. So I want to talk to you about consciousness and the sacredness of consciousness. And so have you ever considered that your consciousness is actually sacred? And by that, I don't mean just your thoughts or your personality, but I'm talking about your quiet, ubiquitous awareness. Just that is sacred. And so it's the aliveness behind your eyes. It's the presence and awareness that you know you're here, you exist, or you're in this room. All of that is sacred. To notice, to be aware. This isn't just a neurological exercise you're going through, but that it actually might be sacred. And listen, I know this isn't just poetic thinking, and I know it's just not woo-woo from this pulpit today. These days, many scientists, philosophers, contemplatives are rethinking the old assumption that consciousness is merely our brain chemistry. Neuroscientists like Chris Koch, like David Chalmers, who I don't even know if they're certainly not Christians, theists that think there is something about consciousness that is grander and bigger and beyond us and yet includes us. And that seems to be somewhat transcendent. Some suggest that the brain not produce consciousness, but you simply receive it, like a radio picks up a signal. Others propose quantum theories of our consciousness, hinting that awareness is partly embedded into the universe itself, the cosmos itself. And this is what I love, because then this is where theology, and specifically an evolving Christian theology, has a chance to hum. That mystics and contemplatives and theologians have long sensed that consciousness is not something in us, it is actually something we are also in. Does that make sense? We'll get to the hot dogs and hamburgers, I promise. And that is sacred. And when you start perceiving it and holding it that way, all kinds of things are impacted. Which brings us to Jesus in our minds. Look what it says, what Christ said in Luke 10. He says it in other places, but I'll give you the Luke version. Jesus is being challenged by people in my job who are trying to trip him up, saying, hey man, what's the most important part of religion and faith and spirituality? So Jesus quotes the Shema, the Old Testament principle. And he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength. And not all versions include this, but the Luke one does, and with all your mind. Love God. It's about loving God with all your mind. And that Greek word there is the Greek word dianoia. And it's beyond just your intellectual understanding of thinking about things. It's a deep understanding. It's a thorough thinking. It's not just logic. It's your ability to reflect. It's your ability to meaning make. It's your awareness. It's beyond that. And we are to in a sense, connect, attach, have affection and connection, relational love connection with God through that, through our awareness. Then we get to Paul. And Paul is talking about, well, how do people transform spiritually? They go to church and they believe a new belief. Maybe they didn't believe and they start believing. That's not what he says. He goes, you don't transform by changing your beliefs or your doctrine or your dog. That's not how you spiritually transform. He says, don't allow this world to mold you into its own image. Instead, be transformed from how? The inside out. How? By the renewing of your mind. Now, the Greek word Paul uses there is the Greek word nous. And it's similar to dianoia. It's not just your intellect, but it is a perception, a spiritual cognition and awareness. And he says, you don't change by changing a belief system. By the way, you can change. I'll put this in modern. You can conform to anything. You can start believing something, whether it's a cultic ideology, whether it's a religious faith, whether it's a political ideology. Very much you can believe something and conform your life to it, of course. This isn't what's happening here. He's saying that real interchange doesn't happen by what you believe. It happens by how you see. And I've talked about this over the years. I'll say, awakening is better than spiritual growth. Spiritual growth is this ascending up and to the right. Awakening is starting to see things different. And when you start to see things different, it transforms you. And that is consciousness, and that is sacred. So what if light, God's light, what if it's literally everywhere? And as I've said, this conversation is really happening among philosophers and neuroscientists, theologians, contemplatives, circling around this provocative thought, this beautiful possibility that what if consciousness is not simply a property of our brain? What if it's a fundamental aspect of reality itself? What if it's not something we possess, but what if it's something we participate in awareness? And so, if you go back to the early Christian desert fathers and mothers, the early Christian mystics, they held to this view. If you're a big fan of Richard Rohr, this is somebody who holds to this view, or Brian McLaren. You can talk to scientists who reject atheism, but hold to transcendent naturalism. They'll go, we're not even theists, but we think the cosmos in the universe has some sort of aliveness to it that we tune into. And now I'll just I am speaking for me, but now I'll say something for me. As a Christian spiritual minister, this excites my Christian spirituality. It doesn't turn the volume down at all. It makes Christ and his teaching in this more vivid than ever, more alive than ever. And what it is this spiritual light that is so talked about in our scriptures. It's less about ascending to find God. And by the way, let's just be honest, that's how some of you arrived here. You were burdened by constantly having to ascend to something bigger, better, brighter. That actually your light started to go dim. So that Christian spirituality is much less about ascending to find God out there somewhere. but it's awakening to God and light that is already here, the natural light that you are already in. And some of you go, well, is this really Christian? Really? Well, let me go all the way back to Paul when he's in Athens. So Paul arrives in Athens. He's a fully converted Jew to Jesus. He's not necessarily a Christian. Paul views that he's in a developing Jewish sect. It's Judaism evolving and expanding. So he shows up in Athens, and he gets up to the Areopagus where there's all these statues named for their Greek gods. But then he gets to the end of the row, and there is one there that just says, "To the unknown God." So when Paul stands by it, he doesn't turn to them and go, "I want to start quoting you from the Bible, from the Old Testament, and teach you about God." Paul gets there and goes, What's this one about? The unknown God. And he's with Epicureans and Stoics. He's with Greek intellects who are thinking about these existential, spiritual things all the time. And they go, well, we have that one because maybe God is beyond our view of God. Maybe there's something even beyond what we think. So he gave it the title of the unknown God. And then Paul says something which it's literally one of my most favorite verses in all of Christian spirituality. It's leaving you hanging. Now, do you have that, Austin? Do you have that passage from Acts 17? Okay. Let me read it to you. So Paul gets up to this and goes, which one's this? And then the story I just told you. And then Paul says, God made the nations to seek after God. And then listen to this, and perhaps feel their way to find him. It's beautiful to just wander and to figure it out and feel your way towards this. No. You show up at the church and the minister tells you what to believe, right? And the minister says, this is the authority, and No. You feel and you figure out your way. And then this is what he adds. And while that's happening, he's not far from any of us. He's right there. And then he says these beautiful poetic words. For in God we live and move and have our being. For in God we live and move and have our existence. And again, I think this is a bold reframing of reality. It means that the spiritual life, Christian spirituality, is not ascending up some ladder to burn brighter. It means you just move and weave in your existence, in your humanity, that you are already immersed in it. And many times we're just unaware of it. So I'll close with this. This is where we land. And this, I'll speak for me. Listen, I know my light is not dazzling. I'm well aware of that. And I know my faith doesn't glow like a spotlight. But that's not its flaw, that's its feature. It's all sacred and aware. And because Christian spirituality, I hold, it was never meant to outshine. When I was trying to burn bright, it still had a sense of narcissism to it. I am to outshine others. And that just doesn't fit with my view of it anymore. In fact, it's about being fully human. And so I will admit, sometimes we need bright lights. We do need moments of bright light. Activists, people that shine so bright that we go, yes, absolutely. But most of us just live in our dailiness, in our humanity. And what I'm trying to say is when you and I wake up to that is sacred. And it's not just a sacredness that comes from you, it's a sacredness that you also are able to receive if you continue to tune into it. And I think the scriptures, our scriptures, talk about this over and over and over.